The miracle in the frequency. At the end of an intense week, while resting at home and listening, as always, to his indispensable classical music, his phone rang. The caller was his closest friend, who lived in another city and worked at the largest hospital there. The memories of their years together in high school and medical school had always outweighed their identities as colleagues. With a tired tone of voice, his friend began describing the condition of his 8-year-old patient. Usually, he would start his sentences with dry jokes and could never get to the real issue without first making William laugh. This time, the situation was serious. The patient was a child whose ion channels behaved as if they were frozen, causing the heart to slow to the brink of stopping. Although medications reached the cell membrane, they could not enter. He was desperate and had asked for William's support to discuss what could be done in the next stages of treatment. William immediately requested all the critical data regarding the examinations and treatment process. Shortly after, a large volume of data arrived via email. What he saw was far worse than what his friend had described. Due to a toxic shock-induced blockage, the patient's cells were rejecting every externally administered drug. An 8-year-old child. Despite nearly thousands of years of medical teachings and all the technological advancements reached so far, there stood before him a tiny body that refused treatment. This grim picture was not one where time could be wasted on exchanging ideas, and with a swift decision, William wanted to examine the patient in person. He had decided to go to the hospital where his doctor friend, who had asked for help, was working. This train journey, which would take nearly 5 hours, might turn out to be longer and more exhausting than the 24 years he had devoted to the medical profession, a calling that had once been his childhood dream. When William was still a medical student, he followed the footsteps of his mentor, Professor Dr. Arthur Bennett, the head of the Department of Physiology at his faculty, almost like a roadmap. With him, he did not only descend into the depths of medical science, but also into the unopened wells of life's hidden mysteries. Professor Bennett was also deeply involved in music and was especially known for his love of classical music. It would not be wrong to say that William's passion for classical music was, in fact, an inheritance from his mentor. When William paid his final visit to Professor Bennett shortly before his passing, as his illness had progressed, his mentor gave him his wristwatch as a keepsake. Despite William's insistence on refusing it, his mentor's final firm command prevailed, and William had no choice but to accept the watch. That watch, worn by the man he deeply respected and followed step by step, a man who had been a source of hope and healing for countless patients, now rested on William's wrist, carrying the weight of a great responsibility and a sacred trust. It had all happened years ago. One dawn, when Professor Bennett passed away, the wristwatch he had given his student showed 4:41 last time and then stopped. William replaced the battery countless times, but the minute and hour hands stubbornly refused to move even a single second. That watch had chosen to remain forever at 4:40. When William arrived at the hospital, he met with his friend, had a coffee together, and then proceeded to the intensive care unit. The silence of the ICU on the 7th floor was broken only by the cold hum of machines. As William examined all the test results and the monitor before him, it felt as if he were living through the most helpless night of his life. The patient was an 8-year-old little girl. Her body was rejecting all medical interventions due to a rare toxic shock. Even the strongest medications bounced off the cell membrane and returned, while her tiny heart slowed a little more with every passing minute. He could not act immediately, as the patient's critical condition remained uncertain. The deadlock he faced rendered all his medical knowledge ineffective. That evening, they left the hospital to go to his friend's home, but both of their minds remained with the patient. Throughout the journey, his friend kept murmuring the same question. "What are we missing, William?" Whenever these two old friends came together, even the order of their conversations was predictable. Their mischievous high school days, summer vacations spent with their families, and their favorite activity, open-air summer cinemas. During medical school, falling in love with the same girl and then, under the influence of rational thinking, simultaneously giving up on that love had become the talk of the entire faculty. A strange but, to them, logically justified decision. They even attributed their continued bachelorhood to that choice. As they reminisced and smiled, Dr. William repeated his familiar sentence. The only thing we fell in love with at the same time and never gave up on, I guess, was the medical profession, my friend. It was a well-placed sentence, yet one that struck them both deeply. Before them lay a tiny heart for which they were obliged, yes, obliged, to find a solution to a deadly illness encountered in the earliest years of life. To shake off this stone-heavy feeling of helplessness, they consulted late into the night, losing themselves in the textbooks from their university days. At one point, his friend reminded William of the sentences Professor Bennett used to say during lectures, sentences no one had fully understood at the time. For a while, he had even written many of them down in a notebook as keepsakes. "How could I forget?" William replied. His friend began reading some of the most well-known lines. "Friends, sometimes knocking on the door is not enough. You must vibrate the door knocker at the same speed as the door itself. A cell is not an impregnable fortress, it is an instrument. If you cannot perceive the hidden gap between the notes A and E, even the best medicine will be turned away at the door. Healing is not in chemistry, but in vibration. Whoever uses the correct frequency turns the key of the universe." They smiled at each other. "Well then," William said, "now solve it if you can." His friend continued, "We are merely apprentices who imitate nature." And another, "Science is not made up of numbers alone. Sometimes it is a lantern left by a master for his student's darkest moment." Every sentence echoed in William's mind as if resounding across the vast amphitheater walls. Yet the final note caused a deep silence. "Children, you always ask me why I love classical music so much. Music is not made of notes alone. It is made of the frequencies that create the universe. If you listen to the right music, your communication with the universe begins at that very moment." So what does this mean? The music we listen to, the sounds we hear, are not merely entertainment. They are keys that open the doors of the cells of humans and every living being on Earth. Dr. William looked at the wristwatch he had worn for years without ever taking it off. As his friend's words echoed off the empty walls, he focused on the watch in deep silence. For 40, for 40, for 40, a lightning bolt struck his mind. He stood up, removed the watch and showed it to his friend. "What do you see?" His friend looked puzzled. "Professor Bennett's watch." "Forget the watch," William snapped. "It's telling us something. Don't you see?" "440, William said. "That is 440. This is Professor Bennett's final lesson for us. One that pierces through time. 440 hertz, my friend. The solution is hidden here." He grabbed the notebook and flipped through the pages rapidly. "When science falls silent, listen to the tuning of the universe. Professor Bennett's time of death is no coincidence," William continued. 440 is not just a moment in time. It is the frequency of the universal, a note. His mentor had left a code for William's darkest hour. William realized that the ion channels in the patient's cells were electrically locked. In a case where drug absorption had nearly stopped, he understood that 440 Hz could serve as a divine key. Resonating with this frequency, the cell membrane would open, allowing the medication to flow inward. "Synoperation," William said. "Remember Professor Bennett's lecture?" His friend nodded in understanding. Scientifically, this falls under acoustic targeted drug delivery. We are simply combining a scientific reality with the mystical power of 440 Hz. At the same time, 440 Hz was the frequency worker bees used to sustain the hive. Recent studies also showed that a fetus perceives the harmonics of the mother's voice most purely between 440 and 432 Hz, a tangible bond between frequency, survival, and trust. "Get up," William said. "We're going." They returned to the hospital and briefed the ICU staff. The intervention began immediately. After midnight, medications were administered intravenously. Frequency-emitting probes were placed on the small body. When the active substance fully entered circulation, the moment came. William initiated the microsound frequency. For 1 full hour, everyone waited in silence. As 440 Hz vibrated through the child's body, the monitor lines began to synchronize. The body responded. The cell membranes opened. The medication flowed inward. Tears filled their eyes, not of sorrow, but of fulfillment. "You didn't just give her a frequency," his friend said. "You gave her the command that says, 'You are safe.'" A new bustle began in the ICU. Protocols were updated. Hope returned. At 4:40 a.m., a sharp tick came from the watch. The minute hand moved. 4:41. The watch now turned not for William, but for the child who had returned to life. William pressed the watch to his ear, not hearing time, but a heartbeat. As sunlight filled the room, they understood. Healing is sometimes hidden not in medicine, but in the forgotten melody of nature. William gently placed the watch on the little girl's wrist, stroked her hair, and left the ICU with profound gratitude for Professor Arthur Bennett.